There are moments in Hollywood that people talk about for years. Moments when the energy in a studio shifts so suddenly, so sharply, that everyone present remembers where they were standing, what they were holding, even what they were thinking. And on the morning Meghan Markle returned to acting at Amazon MGM Studios for the film Close Personal Friends, that moment arrived before she even set foot on the soundstage. Because before the lights, before the cameras, before the first line of dialogue was rehearsed, someone whispered 5 words into a walkie-talkie that froze half the crew mid-stride. She brought her own paparazzi. Let that sink in for a moment. Before we continue, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell for updates. A closed-set production, a multi-million-dollar schedule, a director known for his precision and calm. And suddenly, whispers of flashes firing outside the building, of vans parked where no vans should be, of unfamiliar men with cameras tailing assistants. The rumor spread through the hallways faster than any lighting cue could be relayed. Meghan wasn't just returning to Hollywood. She was staging a comeback, and she wanted it captured. But why? Why now? And more importantly, why like this? Those questions weren't asked out loud. Nobody dared. But they hovered in the air like humidity, building and building until you could practically feel the tension sticking to your skin. And the strangest part? That wasn't even the real reason Amazon MGM staff were already on edge before Meghan arrived. Because a second message came over the walkie-talkie. A softer one. A quieter one. The kind of line you only hear when someone knows something they don't yet want to explain. Security might have concerns. Concerns? On a controlled studio lot. This is where the story begins to twist. Because if you ask 10 people who were there that day what the first sign of trouble was, you'll get 10 different answers. One might say it was the private convoy that blocked the loading docks. Another would insist it was the argument between Meghan's security and the studio's guards. Someone else swears the tension started when the actors found out she had brought a personal stylist, a personal lighting consultant, and personal bodyguards. None of whom were vetted, registered, or equipped to be anywhere near the active set. But that's the thing about chaos. It never has one starting point. It collects slowly, grain by grain, whisper by whisper, misstep by misstep, until it suddenly erupts. And on this day, it erupted with force. Imagine the scene. It's early morning at the studio. The air is cool, the kind of crispness that carries the sharp smell of plywood, paint, and fresh coffee brewing in the art department. Background actors shuffle in through the east gate. Costume assistants rush past, arms full of garment bags. A camera operator adjusts lenses with the calm ease of someone who's done this 1,000 times. Then, a sudden shift. A strange SUV pulls in, tinted windows dark as obsidian. No production sticker. No security clearance scan. Just a slow roll through the lot like it owned the space. Guards approach. They expect a mistake, maybe a confused visitor. But instead, doors swing open, and out steps a uniformed guard not affiliated with the studio. A whispered conversation. Raised eyebrows. A tense radio call. And suddenly, the whispers begin. She's here. Except she wasn't. Not yet. Only her security was. And they were already arguing with the studio's team. Now, here's where the emotional stakes really kick in. The comeback wasn't just significant for Meghan. It was a moment studios had spent months crafting. Amazon MGM promoted Close Personal Friends quietly, but intentionally. Character-driven. Intimate. A return to roots. It was supposed to be a fresh chapter. A rebrand. A symbol of reinvention. And then Meghan's staff arrived acting like a presidential motorcade. Production assistants watched from a distance, clutching clipboards. Makeup artists exchanged looks, tight smiles betraying the kind of stress only people in the beauty department recognize instantly. A sound engineer muttered, "This is going to be a long day." And an associate producer rubbed her temple and whispered, "Why didn't anyone tell us she was bringing an entire detail?" Because that's the thing. Production had no idea. Nobody was prepared for it. The studio's own security protocol, something rehearsed and fine-tuned and signed off by 3 separate departments, was suddenly disrupted by strangers walking around with earbuds and hand signals. Have you ever been in a room where everyone pretends things are fine, but deep down, every nerve in the place is humming with tension? That was the atmosphere on set. Quiet panic. Professional smiles. Under the breath curses. And that was before the first paparazzi stepped out from behind a trailer. The first flash startled a group of extras. The second flash triggered a sharp order from a studio guard. You cannot be here. But the third flash, that was the one that changed everything. Because that flash came from someone Meghan's team ushered forward. Someone who walked in confidently. Someone who acted like they belonged. Someone who had clearly been invited. Do you see the pattern forming? Things weren't just messy. They were intentional. The fact that Amazon MGM was caught off guard wasn't a coincidence. It was the spark that ignited everything that followed. And the actors? The ones actually filming the scenes that day? They were livid. Imagine being a lead actor preparing for an emotional scene. A heavy one. The kind that takes focus, presence, breathing control, only to step outside for a moment and get hit with a wall of camera flashes. Not staged studio lighting. Not a curated photo shoot. But raw, unfiltered paparazzi chaos. Are you kidding? One actor snapped. We don't do this on closed sets. Another stormed back inside, venting to a wardrobe assistant. If this is how the day starts, I'm not staying. But Meghan didn't see any of that, because she hadn't arrived yet. And somehow, that fact made everything 10 times worse. Because the whispers grew louder, the tension multiplied, and suddenly the crew wasn't asking, what's happening? They were asking something much more dangerous. What happens when she actually gets here? And that's where the timeline gets even more unsettling. An assistant director. Someone usually calm, collected, the type of person who handles crises with a stable voice, walked briskly into the production office. His face was flushed. His tone was sharp. We need Jason. Jason Orley. The director. The man in charge. The person responsible for maintaining order, for honoring the schedule, for protecting the production. And in that moment, every staff member's eyes turned toward the door, waiting to see how he'd react. But Orley wasn't in the building. He was in the parking lot, watching a cluster of photographers form near the studio entrance, watching Meghan's guards reposition themselves, watching confusion turn into agitation. Imagine being a director trying to hold the center of a storm that hasn't even fully arrived yet. He watched Meghan's SUV circle the building twice, before pulling into the designated spot. And even before she stepped out, Orley already knew. This was going to be a bad day. The door opened. Meghan Markle emerged, sunglasses on, smile poised, posture perfect. And there was no denying it. She radiated confidence, determination, expectation. She looked like someone walking into a triumphant moment, not someone walking into chaos she unknowingly triggered. A hum swept through the lot as crew members tried to avoid staring directly, but still processed everything. Meghan brushed her hair back. She straightened her coat. She took a measured breath. A paparazzo shouted her name. She turned, softly, gracefully, as though expecting the moment. Click, flash, click, flash. And the crew erupted inside, not with cheers, but with groans. Because this wasn't supposed to be happening here. Paparazzi aren't allowed on closed studio lots. Actors aren't supposed to be photographed in costume or before filming. Production schedules aren't supposed to be disrupted by unapproved press. It wasn't just unprofessional. It was a liability. But Meghan didn't seem to notice. Or maybe she did, and didn't care. She smiled gently. She waved. She posed for 1 second too long. Maybe 2. And then, as she walked toward the entrance, her security flanking her like a royal escort, one member of the crew said something no one will forget. Oh, she thinks this is her palace. And the truth? That line wasn't meant to be cruel. It wasn't meant as gossip. It was meant as prophecy. Because the moment Meghan stepped onto the soundstage, it became clear that this wasn't a normal shoot. She was already frustrated, already complaining about the sound, already asking about lighting, already requesting changes. And she hadn't even said her first line yet. But here's where the tension spikes. Because as staff rushed around trying to adjust to the unexpected demands, something happened that turned mild panic into full-blown alarm. A door on the west side of the building, restricted access, studio staff only, was shoved open from the outside, and a photographer stumbled in. A paparazzo. Inside the building. Inside the active set. This wasn't an accident. It wasn't confusion. It wasn't a miscommunication. Someone had let him in. And that was the moment the studio realized. This wasn't a chaotic morning. This was a situation. Because if paparazzi were already inside, what else would follow? How much worse could it get? How much more tension could the cast and crew endure? Who invited them? Who leaked the schedule? And what would happen when security found out where they entered? But the biggest question, the one nobody dared ask aloud, was this. What would Meghan do next? Because the day's biggest explosions were still waiting. And nothing, absolutely nothing, prepared the cast for what happened when Meghan walked onto the set, looked around, and declared that the entire lighting setup needed to be rebuilt because a shadow made her look too real. But if you think that was the breaking point, just wait. The first real warning sign didn't come from the paparazzi. It didn't come from the security clash or the tinted SUVs or even the frantic whispers echoing down the hallway. No. The real warning sign came from the moment Meghan stepped into the studio lobby and froze, looking around with an expression that blended surprise, annoyance, and something else entirely, disappointment. Because from the very first seconds, it was obvious she expected something that simply didn't exist. A grand welcome, a lighting setup just for her entrance, a coordinator giving her a warm speech about returning to Hollywood royalty, maybe even a small applause moment. But that's not how film sets work. Film sets are messy, loud, chaotic ecosystems. People sprint, people yell, people adjust cables and move props and drag carts filled with lighting frames. Nobody stops unless an AD screams quiet on set. And even then someone somewhere is always muttering. But Meghan? She walked in like she expected a coronation. And what she saw instead was a tired, overworked PA juggling a stack of binders. A makeup intern tripping over a stool. A stressed-out camera operator trying to fix a monitor issue. A stray boom pole leaning awkwardly against a wall. So when she asked, politely at first, "Is this the right entrance for principal cast?" the silence that followed was sharp. The intern blinked twice. The PA swallowed and tried not to break into a sweat. It wasn't that anyone wanted to disrespect her. It was simply that nobody had been told to prepare for theatrics. Yes? The PA answered, voice shaky. Meghan nodded slowly, like someone masking irritation. She removed her sunglasses with a practiced motion, her expression shifting into professional poise. She straightened her coat. She glanced around again. And for the first time, several crew members realized something important. She wasn't walking in as Meghan Markle, actress returning to a new role. She was walking in as Meghan Markle, the celebrity. And the problem was, the studio wasn't built for that. A set only works when everyone understands the hierarchy, including the actors. Let actors know they're important, but they also know the machine is bigger than them. They arrive. They fit into the process. They adapt. But what if you have an actor who expects the process to adapt to them? That's when things fracture. And the fractures began almost instantly. "Where's my room?" Meghan asked. The PA gestured. "Right this way." But there was hesitation. A dangerous thing on a set where energy matters. Meghan noticed it instantly. Her steps slowed. She glanced sideways. "Is there a problem?" No, none at all." The PA said too quickly. But of course, there was a problem. A big one. Because the studio hadn't yet finished preparing her dressing room. Not completely. It was functional. Chair, mirror, decent lighting. But it wasn't what she expected. Not the curated, influencer-ready aesthetic her team was known to request. And that's when the first real ripple of tension hit. She stepped inside. She stood still. She looked around. And she exhaled sharply in a way that told every staff member within a 10-foot radius she was not pleased. Now imagine being a crew member watching this unfold. The anxiety, the sweat, the silent fear that the day had already derailed. The assistant makeup artist later described it like this. It felt like the room itself shrank. Like all the oxygen left. Meghan turned slowly. Is this the final version?" The PA panicked. We can make adjustments. What would you like changed?" There are moments, very small ones, that define the trajectory of an entire day. And Meghan's response, measured, polite, but cold, set the tone. "I was told the room would reflect the aesthetic of my photography requirements." Photography requirements. On a film set. For a role that hadn't filmed a single frame yet. That was the moment crew members realized. She wasn't here to simply act. She was here to craft an image. And nothing disturbs a film crew more than an actor who cares more about optics than performance. The PA assured her they'd fix it. Meghan nodded, but not in a way that suggested satisfaction. More like acknowledgement of an inconvenience she expected them to resolve. Her security team adjusted positions behind her. Then came the next issue, script pages. A script coordinator approached with updated sides for the morning shoot. Thankfully, this was normal. Scripts get refined daily. But Meghan reacted differently. "These aren't the revisions my team approved," she said. The coordinator blinked, confused. "These are the revisions the director signed off on." Silence. A dangerous, heavy silence. Meghan responded calmly, but with unmistakable steel. "My team adjusts my dialogue when necessary." The coordinator forced a smile. "Of course, but the director." "I'll speak with him," Meghan cut in. "Now, here's the important part. Actors don't go directly to the director for script changes. They go through channels. Through advisors, producers, sometimes coaches. Going straight to the director before filming even starts? That's a bold move. One that signals power, leverage, or at least the perception of it. But Meghan didn't seem to know, or didn't care, about those boundaries. She walked toward stage 3, expecting Jason Orley to be available on demand. But Orley? He was in a production meeting reviewing a complex emotional scene, with timing cues and camera blocking and set adjustments. All things far more pressing than a hallway confrontation. The AD tried stopping her. "He's in a meeting right now." She waved a hand slightly. "He'll want to speak with me." But she didn't get far. Another assistant intercepted her, breathlessly explaining that Orley would need to schedule time to discuss revisions. Her face tightened. Schedule. It was one word. One syllable. But it landed like a thrown knife. This wasn't what she expected. She had imagined a room full of people waiting for her. A director excited to collaborate. A crew bending schedules around her needs. Instead, she encountered the reality of filmmaking. Nobody, absolutely nobody, stops an entire production for one actor, no matter how high profile. And that misalignment between expectation and reality sowed the first seeds of the day's meltdown. Meghan returned to her room, but her frustration followed her. Staff heard her speaking sharply to someone through the door, maybe a stylist, maybe an assistant, maybe even herself trying to regain composure. But while she regrouped, something else happened. Something that made everything significantly worse. Her security team, clearly instructed to maintain her privacy at all costs, began sweeping areas of the studio they weren't authorized to enter. They checked closets. They checked hallways. They checked stairwells. They even walked into a set build area, where a massive wooden structure was halfway assembled, and demanded crew clear pathways. This is the kind of thing that sets off red alarms. Crew members don't respond to outside guards. They respond to studio authority. Security hierarchy is a delicate thing, built on protocol and chain of command. Meghan's team bulldozed right through it. And then one of her guards made a mistake that would alter the course of the entire day. He pushed open a door that was clearly marked, "Do not enter." Filming. Inside was a lead actress in the middle of an emotional warm-up. Vulnerable. Focused. Preparing. And the door swung wide open. The actress gasped. She yelled. And then she stormed straight to the assistant director, furious. "Why are people barging in here? Who are these men?" It was a mess. A professional violation. A breach of trust. And the moment Orley came out of his meeting and heard what happened, he exhaled the sentence that rattled multiple departments. "We're losing control." Meghan, meanwhile, stepped out of her dressing room expecting everything to be resolved. New lighting. New adjustments. A different energy. But the set she walked into didn't match her fantasy of a triumphant Hollywood return. She felt it immediately, the stiffness, the forced politeness, the tension under the surface. She smiled. Crew members forced half-smiles back. A makeup artist fumbled a brush. And then, the worst moment of her entrance. A background actor, oblivious and stressed, carrying a tray of props, rounded the corner too fast and brushed past her. Just brushed past her. But her guard reacted like a threat had been detected. He stepped in front of her. He raised his arm. The background actor stumbled backward, terrified. "Watch it," the guard barked. The entire hallway froze. Nothing kills morale faster than seeing a fellow worker intimidated for doing their job. And that was when several crew members realized. This was not going to be a normal shoot. This was going to be survival. Whispers spread fast. She brought royal protocol to a movie set. She expects security to clear space for her like she's a head of state. This is going to blow up. And blow up it did. But not yet. Because before the real chaos erupted, Meghan attempted to take control of the room. She stepped onto the set, ready for rehearsal, and asked calmly, "Can we redo the lighting?" "It's harsh." Orley blinked. "We haven't even begun lighting. This is just the base setup." But Meghan shook her head. "It isn't flattering." The gaffer overheard. He looked like someone had slapped him with a lighting manual. This wasn't a portrait session. This was a film. Characters aren't supposed to look perfect. They're supposed to look real. But Meghan didn't want real. She wanted curated. And she was about to ask for something no actor asks for at the beginning of a shoot. "I'd like to look at monitor playback before we begin filming." Playback? Before shooting anything? Crew members glanced at each other, horrified. It was too early for that. Too disruptive. Too strange. But before anyone could push back, before anyone could redirect or calm the situation, something happened that derailed the rest of the day. A walkie-talkie crackled. A trembling voice said, "We've got a situation outside." Paparazzi crossed into the restricted zone. Everyone turned. Meghan froze. Orley's face darkened. And someone whispered words that would set the stage for the next explosion. "They're saying Meghan's team let them in." The first scream didn't come from an actor. It didn't come from a director, a PA, or even a guard. It came from a makeup assistant, someone who had never raised her voice on set before, someone so timid she apologized when she walked too loudly. But when she stepped outside stage 3 for a moment of fresh air and a break from the suffocating tension inside, she saw something no one was supposed to see. A wall of flashing lights. Paparazzi. At least 6 of them. Huddled together like wolves circling prey. One aimed a long-lens camera straight at her. Another climbed on top of a lighting crate. A third tried peeking through a window. She screamed, stumbled backward, and rushed back inside shouting, "They're here. They're actually here." And that moment, those panicked words, was the instant everything shifted. Because while rumors had been flying, while security had been clashing, while Meghan had been adjusting lighting demands inside the studio, nobody truly believed the paparazzi would be bold enough, reckless enough, or stupid enough to breach the perimeter of a closed Amazon MGM set. But they did. And the staff knew one thing instantly. Someone had let them in. No paparazzi just wanders into a restricted production zone. You need access routes, gate timing, knowledge of where people will enter and exit. You need coordination. And the only people who had coordinated anything that day were Meghan's personal team. But here's the real twist. The actors had no idea. They didn't know Meghan brought photographers. They didn't know security was already stretched. They didn't know the studio had ordered strict secrecy around this project. All they knew was that something felt wrong. Actors are emotional creatures. They feel shifts in energy instantly, before scripts change, before lighting alters, before directors even say a word. And all morning they've been whispering, "Something's off. Why is there so much commotion? Why are the guards acting weird? Why does it feel like we're shooting a spy thriller instead of a rom-dram film?" They weren't prepared for what came next. Because when they stepped outside between rehearsals, still in costume, still holding props, still vulnerable, they were confronted by a barrage of camera flashes so bright several of them flinched. The first flash hit like lightning. The second like a spotlight. The third like an invasive shove. And suddenly actors who had spent years building disciplined emotional boundaries were thrown into complete disarray. "What the hell?" one actress shouted, raising her hands to shield her face. Another ducked behind a wardrobe rack someone had wheeled outside. A male supporting actor cursed loudly. "This is a closed set. Who let these people in?" But the photographers didn't retreat. They advanced. They got closer. More aggressive. More determined. One paparazzo shouted, "Is Meghan coming? Is she inside already? Where is she?" Another yelled, "We heard she's filming her big emotional scene today. Can we get a preview?" Lines they should never cross. Questions they should never ask. And then, the worst moment. A pap snapped a photo of an actress who wasn't in full makeup yet. An actress who has an extremely strict clause in her contract about unauthorized photography. Her jaw dropped. Her eyes widened. And she shouted, "Delete that. Delete that now." But paps don't delete. They publish. Crew members rushed over, panicking. Production assistants started waving hands and pleading. A studio security guard shouted, "You cannot be here. This is a breach of protocol." But the photographers were strangely confident. Too confident. as if they had permission. No paparazzi stands their ground on a studio lot unless they believe someone powerful wants them there. And within seconds, it became obvious who that someone was. Because one of the paps, sloppy, sweating, holding a mic with a cheap logo, smirked and said, "We're here for Meghan. Her people told us she would come through this entrance." Every jaw on the set dropped. Meghan's people? Her people? Not the studio. Not publicity. Not the PR team. Her personal team. This wasn't coincidence. And it wasn't an accident. This was coordinated. One of the actors muttered, "You've got to be kidding." Another whispered, "She didn't." A third walked away, saying loudly, "This is unprofessional. I'm not doing this." The energy on the set now felt like a pressure cooker. Steam, heat, panic. Everyone looking at everyone else, trying to understand how this could happen. Inside stage 3, Orley was in the middle of blocking a scene when an assistant director burst through the doors and exclaimed, "Jason, you need to come outside. Right now." Orley didn't even ask why. He just sighed, put down his headset, and walked toward the chaos. When he stepped outside and saw the mob of paparazzi swarming around the front entrance, he froze. Not because he was shocked, but because he knew exactly what this meant. This wasn't a security breach. This was a meltdown waiting to happen. Who authorized this? Orley demanded. The photographers stayed silent. The crew stayed tense. And then one paparazzo, smirking, muttered, "Her team said this would be a good time. She's about to arrive." A hush fell over the crew. Actors stared. Camera operators clenched their jaws. The costume supervisor whispered, "Oh my God," because they understood what this meant. Meghan wasn't just filming. She was staging a return. A comeback moment. A headline moment. One that needed cameras. One that needed flashes. One that needed spontaneous moments caught on film. But here's where things turned from tense to explosive. Meghan wasn't even outside. She was still inside the main building, adjusting her makeup, speaking with a stylist, unaware that the plan she orchestrated, or allowed to unfold, was backfiring spectacularly. And while she was inside preparing her pose, actors were outside feeling violated, exposed, ambushed. That's when the first actor snapped. A supporting actor stormed up to Orley, voice shaking with fury. "I didn't sign up for this circus. Remove them, or I walk." Another actor chimed in. "You better fix this, Jason." And then the lead actress emerged, still in character clothing, still frustrated from the earlier security breach, and when she saw the paparazzi, her expression twisted into disbelief. "No, no, no, not again. Remove them." Orley held his hands up. "Everyone stay calm. I'm handling this." But the situation was already spiraling. Meghan's entrance wasn't glamorous. It wasn't triumphant. It wasn't cinematic. It was a catastrophe. Because when she finally stepped outside to move toward the next building for a makeup adjustment, she was met not with admiration, but chaos. A shouting crowd of photographers, actors covering their faces, security clashing, crew yelling, and cameras firing in every direction. But Meghan interpreted the moment differently. She stepped onto the walkway, posed slightly, just slightly, and gave a soft, practiced smile. That smile was the final straw. "Is she serious?" One actor whispered harshly. "Oh, she thinks this is a red carpet," another snapped. And then came the line that rippled through the crowd like a spark in dry brush. "She brought them." Of course she did. Whether Meghan heard it or not remains unclear. She kept walking with graceful posture, head tilted, chin up. Her security team flanked her as if escorting a dignitary through paparazzi at a gala. But the illusion shattered quickly. Because one of her guards stepped too aggressively toward a photographer who stumbled back, tripped over a lighting crate, and crashed into a rolling cart. The sound echoed like an explosion. Crash. Metal. Shouting. A lamp fell. A bin toppled. A PA screamed. Everything stopped. Every eye turned. Every muscle tensed. And in that suspended second of silence, the gravity of the moment became impossible to ignore. This wasn't just a minor inconvenience. This wasn't just a bad photo op. This wasn't just friction. This was unsafe. This was unprofessional. This was unacceptable. And Jason Orley finally snapped. "Shut it down," he yelled, louder than anyone had ever heard him. Paparazzi froze. Actors gasped. Crew members stared. "Clear them out. Now." Security finally surged forward. Studio security, not Meghan's team. and began clearing paparazzi off the lot, pushing them back toward the perimeter. Some paps resisted. Some argued. Some claimed they were invited. But none of that mattered anymore. The damage was done. The emotional atmosphere had been contaminated. Actors were shaken. Crew members were rattled. Orley was furious. And Meghan? She looked caught between confusion and mild irritation, as though the entire situation was an inconvenience rather than a catastrophe. She attempted to ask what was happening, but before she could speak, Orley made eye contact with her. Not angry, not explosive, just weary. "We need to talk," he said quietly. But he didn't get the chance, because at that very moment, the very second he tried to pull her aside, another walkie-talkie crackled. This one was worse. Much worse. A security officer's trembling voice said, "We've got movement on the west side. Someone forced a door." Repeat, someone forced a door. Meghan's eyes widened. The crew's jaws dropped. Because the west side of the building? That was where only crew and cast had authorized access. That was where scenes were being prepared. That was where expensive equipment was stored. That was where someone had no business breaking in. And then the final line came through. "It's a photographer. He's inside the building." The entire set erupted. People shouted. Security sprinted. Actors panicked. And Meghan stood frozen, the air thick with shock. The paps weren't just outside. They were inside. And that was the moment everyone realized. This wasn't an ambush. This was an invasion. The moment the walkie-talkie crackled with the words, "He's inside the building," everything changed. You could feel the shift. Before that moment, the chaos was overwhelming but still technically outside. External, containable, something the studio could pretend was an unfortunate but manageable mishap. But as soon as a paparazzo slipped inside the controlled zone, the problem became internal. Dangerous, violating, personal. Because film sets aren't just workspaces. They're private, almost sacred environments. Vulnerable, emotional, raw. Actors break themselves open there. Crews pour sweat and muscle and exhaustion into them. Directors hold their entire artistic vision inside those walls. A single unapproved camera? That's not just invasive. It's catastrophic. And now, there was one roaming inside. For a moment, the world seemed to hold still. Then everything exploded. Where exactly inside? Orley demanded into the walkie, his voice eerily calm, the kind of calm that only shows up when someone is seconds away from snapping. A delayed response. A crackling buzz. And then, Stage 3 hallway. "He's moving." Moving? That word sliced through the air like a blade. "Block all access points," a studio guard shouted. "Left side secure. Check the stairwell." Who opened that damn door? Nobody knew. Or maybe someone did and didn't dare say it. And in the middle of this spiraling mayhem stood Meghan Markle, wide-eyed, stunned, but still somehow composed, surrounded by her own private security team who now bristled like a pack of wolves sensing a threat. And that's where the next unbelievable twist hit. Studio security and Meghan's security, two groups that had been bumping elbows all morning, now found themselves staring at each other with the same hostile expression. This wasn't cooperation. This was territory. And the battle lines had just been drawn. A senior studio guard, a man with a clipped voice and steady posture, stepped toward Meghan's team. "We're taking over this situation," he said, his tone firm but professional. "This is a controlled lot. You're not authorized to intervene." But Meghan's lead guard stepped forward too. "No," he responded flatly. "We protect our principal. You handle the perimeter." It wasn't an argument. It was a challenge. The air snapped. Crew members froze. Actors peeked from behind equipment with widened eyes. Because now it wasn't just paparazzi versus the studio. It was guards versus guards. "This is not optional," the studio guard continued, stiffening. "We run internal security. Your guests. We have protocols." Meghan's guard didn't blink. "Our protocols override yours when a threat targets our client." Client. Not actor. Not professional. Not colleague. Client. That was the word that sent an electric jolt through the room. Because film sets don't operate with clients. They operate with cast. They operate with crew. They operate with the mutual respect of people building the same production. But Meghan's team didn't see her as part of the ensemble. They saw her as a protected principal in a high-risk zone. And now, they were treating the set like a political rally gone wrong. One of the actors whispered, "Oh God, this is turning into a turf war." Another murmured, "This is insane. This is absolutely insane." And then, just as tensions reached a breaking point, a studio guard's radio burst alive again. "He's going toward the dressing rooms." Repeat, moving toward dressing rooms. Gasps rippled across the hallway. The dressing rooms. Where personal belongings were. Where cast members changed. Where makeup artists were alone with performers. This wasn't just a breach anymore. This was a violation. The studio guard snapped into action immediately. "Everyone stand down. We're going in." But Meghan's guard stepped in front of him, blocking the path. "No. We go first." The two men squared off inches apart. Every crew member held their breath. Orley stepped forward. "Enough," he said sharply. But it was too late. The fuse had already been lit. Meghan's guard squared his shoulders, his voice low and threatening. "If a photographer is inside and my principal is on this floor, I'm not letting anyone compromise her safety. Not even you." The studio guard fired back just as sharply. "You don't protect this building. You don't secure this lot. You don't run this operation. Step aside." Neither moved. It was like watching two tectonic plates collide, slowly, inexorably, generating high-pressure energy that had nowhere to go except explode. The actors behind them looked terrified. PA interns clutched their clipboards like shields. The costume supervisor whispered into her phone, "We need HR, now." A boom operator muttered, "This is gonna hit deadline by lunch." And Meghan? She stood in the center of it all, her expression unreadable. But not confused, not shocked, just calculating, as if weighing the moment, as if deciding whether to intervene or let the confrontation play out. And then, from down the hallway, a shout. "He's running." The paparazzo, the loose camera, the breach, the spark. Time fractured. Everything happened at once. Studio security lunged forward. Meghan's guards moved too. Crew members scrambled out of the way. A lighting assistant tripped over a cable. A makeup brush rolled across the floor. And suddenly, the hallway became a battleground. Studio guards raced toward the dressing room corridor. Meghan's guards attempted to flank the group, clearly wanting control of the chase. They collided. Shoulders smacked. Voices rose. Orders clashed. "You don't have jurisdiction in this part of the building. We protect our principal at all costs. Fall back. You fall back." And then, the director's nightmare hit. A loud, heavy crash erupted from the far end of the hallway. Something metal slammed against a wall. Then a second crash. Then a third. The paparazzo had run straight into a lighting storage area and knocked down a stack of expensive equipment. This wasn't just property damage. This wasn't just a security issue. This was thousands, possibly tens of thousands, of dollars in damage. The studio guard closest to Orley shouted, "Jason, we're shutting the floor down." But Meghan's guard countered instantly. "You can't shut down while she's exposed. She's only exposed because you let them in." Someone from the crew snapped from behind a costume rack. The silence after that accusation was deafening. All eyes turned toward Meghan. Her expression flashed, just for a moment, with something unmistakable. Guilt, or embarrassment, or annoyance. It was hard to tell which. But she composed herself quickly, chin rising just a fraction. "My team did not authorize." But she didn't get to finish. Because before she could utter another word, two studio guards emerged, dragging the paparazzo out by the arms. Camera swinging from his wrist, lens cracked, shirt torn. Crew members gasped. Actors stepped back. Even Meghan's guards seemed surprised. And the paparazzo? He was still shouting. "I was invited. I was told the door would be open. I didn't break in. I was told she wanted natural shots." He jerked his head toward Meghan. "She wanted pictures. She wanted coverage. That's why we're here." That moment, that single moment, was the dagger. Silence fell thicker than before. Eyes shifted. Crew members exchanged shocked looks. One actor muttered under their breath, "Oh my God, she actually set this up." Another whispered, "This is a nightmare." And the worst part? Meghan didn't deny it. Not immediately. She hesitated. Just for a second. Just long enough for everyone to notice. Before she could speak, Orley, exhausted, furious, overwhelmed, finally broke. "We are shutting this down," he said. "Right now? Reset the entire schedule. Clear the building." But the shutdown wasn't clean. Because shutting down a film set isn't like flipping off a light switch. It's like cutting power to a city block. Everything collapses at once. Actors retreat. Crew members scatter. Wardrobe scrambles to secure costumes. Sound teams unplug gear. Camera teams pack up expensive rigs. Directors fight the urge to scream. Producers start calculating losses. And Meghan? She remains standing in the center of the hallway, watching the fallout unfold around her like someone observing a storm from behind glass. Her guard approached her. "We're escorting you to your room." But the studio guard snapped back. "No, you're not. We escort all talent during shutdown." Another collision course. This time, Orley intervened, stepping between them. "I don't care who escorts who. Just get everyone into safe zones." And that's when the next, most volatile part of the day ignited. Because as Meghan turned away, her guard, softly, but loud enough for the nearest few people to hear, muttered, "This wouldn't have happened if they respected who she is." The nearest crew member snapped. "Respect?" she spat. "Respect isn't barging into rooms, letting paparazzi in, and disrupting an entire film." A second crew member chimed in. "You don't get special treatment here. Nobody does." Then an actor added, "This isn't a throne. It's a studio." The tension was no longer silent. It erupted, and in the middle of the hallway, a line was drawn, not between departments, not between roles, but between Meghan and everyone else. Her security glared. Studio guards postured. Crew whispered angrily. Actors looked ready to revolt. And the storm had only just begun. Because as the chaos settled, no one realized that something far more dangerous was already unfolding inside Stage 3. A moment that would cost the production thousands. A moment sparked by Meghan herself. A moment that would lead directly to the collapse of the day's most expensive scene. Because first came the paparazzi invasion. It was supposed to be the emotional centerpiece of the day. The kind of scene directors obsess over. The kind that actors spend hours preparing for. The kind that costs tens of thousands of dollars every time something goes wrong. But on this particular morning, going wrong didn't even begin to cover it. Inside Stage 3, the set lights were dimmed to a soft amber glow. A carefully constructed living room interior stood at the center, complete with period furniture, hand-picked decor, and props ordered weeks in advance. Camera rigs were locked in place. A dolly track was laid out for a sweeping, emotional shot. The sound team had already prepared ambient layers. Everything was ready. Everything except the actors. Because the actors, still recovering from the chaos of the paparazzi invasion, were rattled, distracted, and emotionally off balance. They had just watched a photographer get dragged out of a hallway like a shoplifter, had just witnessed two security teams square up like opposing armies, and had just heard accusations flying across the building like stray bullets. But the schedule? The schedule didn't care. Film time is money. Studio time is money. Every delay bleeds hundreds, sometimes thousands, out of the budget. And Amazon MGM wasn't about to accept a full shutdown. So when Orley returned to Stage 3, face tight with frustration, headset hanging from his neck, he clapped his hands sharply. Everyone reset. We're still rolling on scene 24A. Actors, positions. His voice echoed through the cavernous room. The lead actress, still shaken from earlier, took a deep breath and moved toward her mark. She wasn't ready. Everyone could see it. Her hands trembled slightly as she adjusted her sweater. Her eyes weren't focused, but she tried. She really tried. Meghan, on the other hand, stepped onto the set with renewed confidence, as though nothing earlier had affected her. Shoulders back, face calm, voice smooth. "Let's make the most of the day," she said softly. The lead actress glanced at her with an expression that hovered somewhere between disbelief and simmering irritation. But the cameras rolled anyway. Quiet on set. Pictures up. Scene 24A, take 1. And action. The scene began. At first, the tension served the performance. The strained energy actually fed into the emotional conflict written into the script. Meghan delivered her opening lines with a guarded vulnerability. The lead actress responded with forced intensity that quickly morphed into something real, raw frustration, genuine annoyance, emotional cracks that weren't planned but were strangely powerful. And for a fleeting moment, it worked. For a fleeting moment, everyone forgot the chaos outside, forgot the paparazzi, forgot the breach, forgot the frustration. This was why they were there. This was the art. This was the moment they had all built toward. Then it happened. A sound. Small. Sharp. Unmistakable. The snap of a camera shutter. Click. The room froze. Actors stopped midline. Crew members stiffened. Orley's head whipped toward the sound like an animal sensing danger. Did someone just? The lead actress whispered. Click. Another shutter. But this wasn't paparazzi. No outsider had slipped inside again. The sound was coming from behind the monitors. From the video village. From someone who absolutely should not have been taking pictures. A member of Meghan's personal team. Holding a phone. Taking candid shots of Meghan mid-scene. The entire crew stared in stunned silence. Everyone knew the rules. No photography during filming. No behind-the-scenes photos without clearance. No leaks of unreleased footage. This wasn't just breaking protocol. This was breaking trust. Breaking respect. Breaking the fragile emotional balance the director had just fought to restore. Stop the scene. The lead actress snapped, stepping out of character instantly. Orley slammed the stop button on the console. Cut. Meghan looked toward her team, eyes narrowing. What are you doing? But the damage was done. The crew was horrified. Actors were livid. And the man with the phone didn't even apologize. He simply shrugged. My boss wanted behind-the-scenes shots, he said casually. Boss. Not director. Not producer. Not studio. Boss. Meaning Meghan. Meaning her team was still prioritizing image over production. Meaning she still didn't understand the gravitational weight of what they were doing. Or worse, she understood perfectly and didn't care. The lead actress took a step toward Meghan, voice tight with controlled rage. You can't let your people shoot our scenes. Do you know what that does to us? To this production? Meghan's expression hardened. They were just taking reference photos. For what? Instagram? Publicity? Leaks? The actress fired back. This isn't about that, Meghan snapped. It's exactly about that, the actress yelled. People come here to work, not to be background in your photo ops. A hush fell over the room. Crew members froze, eyes darting between the two women. Meghan straightened. Are you accusing me of something? She asked sharply. The actress didn't hesitate. Yes. Now, fights between actors happen on sets. Tensions flare. Egos collide. That's not unusual. But this moment felt different. Heavier. Like the air itself had thickened. Orley rushed forward. Enough, both of you. We're not doing this. But the actress was already walking away. No, I'm done until this stops, she said. And she wasn't alone. A supporting actor chimed in. If her team is part of the crew now, then what are we? Another whispered to a sound tech. This is ridiculous. We're losing the whole day. A makeup artist muttered. She doesn't get it. She really doesn't get it. Meghan looked around the room as though seeing the backlash for the first time. This is being blown out of proportion, she insisted. It was one photo. The costume supervisor stepped forward, voice quiet but deadly serious. One photo can leak an entire character arc. One photo can ruin wardrobe reveals. One photo can spoil a whole film. The room nodded. Everyone knew it was true. Everyone except Meghan, or at least, that's how it seemed. Orley massaged his temples. Everyone. Reset. We need 5. But they didn't need 5. They needed a miracle. Because spirits were broken. Tempers were flaring. The emotional temperature of the room was rising faster than anyone could cool it. Still, they tried again. Lights reset. Boom repositioned. Actors hesitantly returned to their marks. And Orley, praying the day could still be salvaged, called out. Scene 24A, take 2. Action. But just as Meghan delivered her first line, another sound cracked the air. This time it wasn't a camera shutter. It was a voice. A loud one. A security guard shouting from outside the stage door. We need the director, now. Orley's shoulders slumped. Crew members groaned. The lead actress closed her eyes in exasperation. What now, she muttered. The stage door flew open. A studio guard rushed in, breathless, sweating, face pale. There's more paparazzi at the east entrance, he exclaimed. 2 of them pushed past a PA. We've got an injury. Meghan gasped. Injury. The guard nodded. A PA fell while blocking them. Hit her shoulder. Whispers erupted. Oh no. Are you serious? How many got in this time? This is a nightmare. And then came the line that sent a chill through the entire stage. One of them said they were told Meghan would be doing an outdoor scene this morning. Meghan's eyes widened. I never said that, she whispered. But whether she denied it or not, the crew didn't believe her. Not anymore. The lead actress looked directly at her and said, This is on you. The tension became unbearable. A producer stepped onto the set, voice soft but firm. We need a full stop. We can't keep filming under these conditions. Crew members nodded. Actors nodded. Even some of Meghan's own team nodded. But then came the twist no one expected. Meghan stepped toward the monitors, jaw clenched. If we stop now, she said, the paparazzi win. They'll get the story they want. The lead actress fired back instantly. What story? The story that you're disrupting a movie shoot for personal publicity. Meghan didn't answer. The silence that followed was the real answer. And in that silence, something snapped inside the crew. They weren't angry anymore. They were exhausted. Emotionally done. Drained. Over it. And Orley could feel the shift like a punch to the chest. He walked toward Meghan slowly, deliberately, lowered his voice, kept his tone even. This scene cost us hours, he said quietly. Hours we can't get back. We have destroyed an entire morning schedule, and it's only getting worse. Meghan inhaled sharply. I didn't cause. No. Orley interrupted. Just one word, but said with finality. Firm. Clear. Unmistakable. No. Not now. We're done. The entire crew froze. Was he actually shutting down production? Was he actually speaking to her like that? Was this going to become a headline by dinner? Orley turned toward the AD. Call lunch. But it's only 10:45, the AD whispered. I don't care, Orley said. Call lunch. The AD grabbed the bullhorn. All right, everyone, lunch break. 1 hour. But nobody moved. They were waiting. Waiting for Meghan to react. Waiting for her to explode. Waiting for her to argue. Waiting for the next fight. But she didn't. Not yet. She simply stood there, staring at Orley with unreadable intensity, the wheels turning behind her eyes. Because Meghan Markle wasn't just angry. She was calculating, repositioning, and planning her next move. But before she could execute that plan, before she could say a single word, a crew member stepped into the room, trembling. There's a bigger issue, she said softly. Everyone turned. Jason, Meghan, we just found out. She swallowed. A paparazzo slipped into the lighting grid earlier. Gasps. Shouts. Disbelief. But that means, someone stammered. It means, the crew member said, voice shaking. He may have captured a shot of the entire cast, including the confidential set design. The room erupted. The moment the word lighting left Meghan's lips, the entire crew collectively stiffened. It wasn't just a request, it was a trigger. Because on a film set, lighting isn't just illumination. It's time, money, labor, logistics. Every adjustment sends ripples through multiple departments. Every change rewires the shot list, redos camera calibration, messes with continuity. It's like asking a chef to restart the entire kitchen because you don't like how a garnish looks. And Meghan wasn't asking for a tweak. She wanted a full reset. All because of a shadow no one else even noticed. A shadow that every actor deals with. A shadow that cinematographers manipulate intentionally for emotional tone. A shadow that meant nothing, except, apparently, to Meghan Markle. The room was already thick with tension when she said it, but now the air was practically solid. I'm sorry. The gaffer stammered, trying to remain polite. What exactly is the issue with the lighting? Meghan stepped closer to the monitor, pointing to a paused frame of herself. That, she said. That line on my cheek. It makes me look harsh. Harsh. One of the crew whispered. It's literally just depth. Another muttered. It's called realism. But Meghan kept going. If the key light shifted 2 inches to the left, the angle of the shadow would be softer. The gaffer blinked. 2 inches. Yes. The entire rig is mounted, he said gently. It's not a desk lamp. We can't just slide it 2 inches. Meghan crossed her arms. Why not? That question was the spark. Because a lighting rig isn't a floor lamp. It's hundreds of pounds of equipment suspended overhead. It takes ladders, harnesses, tools, teamwork. You don't just shift it 2 inches. The gaffer looked like someone had told him gravity was optional. It's a $30,000 light mounted 8 feet above your head, he said slowly. If we move it even an inch, we have to recalibrate the entire setup. Then recalibrate it, Meghan said calmly. Crew members exchanged sharp, panicked looks. The sound engineer whispered, "This is insane." The boom operator muttered, "We'll lose another 3 hours." The lead actress rolled her eyes so hard a makeup artist winced. But Meghan wasn't done. I'd also like the fill light adjusted, she added. It's flattening the dimension of my face. The gaffer coughed. That's literally its purpose. And the rim light is creating a halo effect, she said. It's distracting. That's intentional, the gaffer replied. It separates you from the background. Well, Meghan said coolly, I don't want to be separated. The room went silent. Directors rarely interfere with lighting. Actors never do. But Meghan? She was rewriting the entire manual. Orley pinched the bridge of his nose. Meghan, he said carefully, we have a very specific lighting plan for this scene. It matches the mood of the story. It doesn't match the mood I'm trying to portray, she countered. That line split the room in half. Because acting is collaborative. You work within a director's world, a cinematographer's vision, the tone the writers crafted. But Meghan's phrasing, the mood I'm trying to portray, signaled something else entirely. She wasn't fitting into a film. She was expecting the film to fit around her. The gaffer tried again. If we redo this setup now, we won't film for hours. We'll miss our window for natural bounce lighting outside. Meghan didn't flinch. I'm not shooting until it's fixed. The sound of jaws dropping was practically audible. The lead actress stood up from her mark. Are you serious? She asked. Meghan blinked. Yes. You're holding an entire production hostage over a shadow. I'm maintaining my image, Meghan said simply. Your image? The lead actress shot back. This isn't Vogue. This is a film. Shadows exist. Not on my face, Meghan replied. The actress choked out a disbelieving laugh. Oh my God. This is unbelievable. Orley raised his hands. Everyone, please, let's remain professional. But professional had left the building hours ago. A camera operator muttered, we're bleeding money. A PA whispered, this is my last day. I swear. A producer typed frantically on his tablet, calculating losses. And the gaffer looked like he was about to walk out. We'll redo the lighting, Orley said finally, voice heavy with resignation. The entire crew groaned. Meghan smiled faintly. But, Orley continued, it will take time. Everyone needs to be patient. No one wanted to be patient. Not after the paparazzi invasion. Not after the security clash. Not after the breach. Not after the destroyed equipment. Not after the leaked photo scare. And now they were losing hours because of a cheek shadow. The gaffer gestured to his team. All right, everyone. Let's reset. A lighting tech whispered under his breath. Reset? We're rebuilding the entire set. Meghan's people hovered nearby, whispering too, but in a tone that suggested this was a triumph. As if winning a lighting adjustment was some kind of victory. And while the crew climbed ladders, rearranged fixtures, recalibrated angles, and dragged equipment across the floor, Meghan made another request. Can we lower the ambient temperature? She asked the AD. The temperature? The AD repeated. It's too warm, Meghan said. It dulls my skin. The AD forced a smile. We can try. And hair, Meghan added, turning to her stylist. We need to redo the ends. They're too soft. A makeup artist whispered to another. She's redoing her hair in the middle of a lighting rebuild? Oh yeah, the other whispered back. She's on her own schedule. As the lighting overhaul continued, Meghan called out again. Can we get the set quiet? The crew stared. People were literally moving heavy equipment. The sound of metal clinking against metal echoed across the soundstage. Hammers, clamps, ladders, it was noisy by necessity. But Meghan lifted her chin. I need silence when I'm adjusting my performance. The gaffer nearly burst a blood vessel. You're adjusting your performance while we're rebuilding the entire. Orley cut him off. Take 5, he said. Everyone relax. Relax? No one could relax. Not now. Not ever. Not with the threat of more paparazzi lingering outside, possibly waiting for another crack in security. Not with tensions so high the electrical cables felt like they were humming with emotion. Then, incredibly, as the crew took a forced break, waiting for lighting to be repaired, Meghan walked toward the camera rig and squinted at the lens. This camera angle isn't flattering either. The operator's head snapped up so fast his headset nearly flew off. Excuse me. The angle, Meghan repeated. It's too low. My jawline looks sharp. It's the director's chosen angle, the operator said tightly. Well, Meghan replied. The director hasn't seen the angle from the perspective of someone who knows her own face. Someone dropped a coffee cup. It hit the ground like a tiny bomb. Orley approached quickly. Meghan, he said quietly, firmly. Please let the crew do their jobs. She nodded. Of course. I'm simply giving input. Input is fine, Orley said. Taking over is not. Meghan didn't reply, but the silence she gave was louder than any argument. As lighting crews returned to work, the room buzzed with overlapping whispers. Why is she doing this? She's acting like she's the director. She's acting like she owns the movie. She's going to get herself removed. She's going to get all of us fired. Then came the breaking point. The gaffer, sweat dripping down his face, stood over the new lighting setup. We're ready, he called out. Everyone froze. This was it. Hours lost. Schedules destroyed. Crew exhausted. The moment had arrived to finally resume filming.